we have some sounds for you today. Boy, do we have some sounds for you today. We're looking at the new 424 gain stage from JHS Pedals. Okay, I should explain why I'm laughing so much. Just check this out. Before we get started, I want to be super clear that while I am very grateful to have a relationship with JHS Pedals and they send me stuff to check out from time to time, this is not a sponsored video in any way, shape or form. If I didn't like the thing, I definitely wouldn't be making the video, but I do like it. It's nostalgia in some senses for me. It's also a lot of fun to use, which we'll get into. I'm going to give you two major use cases for us bass players that I think could be very applicable. And at the end of the video, I want to show you how this might actually make it onto my current pedal board and which pedal it will be replacing. But back to that nostalgia thing. This is from 1996, the mid 90s, the Tascam 424. It is, I believe, the first device I ever used to record music when a home studio situation became a thing. Not that I owned one, I was most likely in someone else's house using it, but my earliest memories of not being in a real recording studio, but still recording music and recording multiple tracks was with a Tascam 424. I have a bit of a weird loop from yesterday in my looper that is definitely not on the regular bass playing side, but it's got a bit of a vibe, and maybe we can manipulate that. We'll get you used to the sound of it because it's already quite crunchy and 8080 and a little bit lo-fi in places. And right now the 424 gain stage is bypassed. Now if we bring that in, bring it up to sort of unity gain, like gain match it right around there. And essentially what this pedal is a channel strip from the Tascam 424. So bright and a little bit crunchy, but also a little bit lo-fi in terms of the treble, the high end. So we could sort of take that out and get more of a filter effect. Maybe roll out all the bass. It's pretty powerful when you put a lot of bass in there, but just to give you an A-B here with that EQ. And to give you a quick overview of the controls, the volume control is the master volume of the entire unit of the Tascam. Gain 1 is the channel fader and gain 2 is the trim. I think gain 2 is probably where we get to some fun, where we get to some crunchiness. And I'll process that same loop again. And maybe we can take gain 1 down. Actually, it might be the other way around if I take gain 2 down and then really, there we go. Now we're destroying the signal. So yes, admittedly, not the most useful thing for a bass player if you're taking the pedal to a gig, but to me it's kind of fun, and I kind of have to put this into my world. I'm sure everyone else making videos about this for the launch will have a little bit of a different take on it. I figured my own take was probably the most useful thing and honest thing I have to give. So I like manipulating what's happening before it by hand on the desk, and really playing with the EQ, with the gain structure, and being able to distort it, being able to crunch the heck out of it. And like I said, I'm going to give you two examples. I'm going to put this in the middle of the signal chain in a minute and use it as a fuzz pedal and really let it rip. There are some amazing sounds to be had like that. But before I put it in there, I want to get some sort of cleaner sound, so it's a little bit more evident what's going on. Let's actually turn that off. So I have no preamp happening at all in the pedal board. My instrument is passive and I just have both pickups open wide. So I guess gain 1 is more about how much sort of preamp sound is happening. So all I have in there is a little bit of reverb on my sound. And it's already kind of blooming a little bit. It's very subtle, I will say that, and it's very much a feel thing, at least for me, at least as a bass player, probably for us bass players who are considering using this. You definitely feel it under the fingers, which I think is one of the most important things. Crank the pre even more. Maybe warm up the sound, take down the highs a bit. And let me A-B that for you. And in terms of just playing single notes, if we get down in the lower register of the instrument, there's a lot you can do with that. And I'm going to save or hold off on the crunching and the overdrive and the distortion fuzz kind of thing until I get it in the chain, because this really is more of a DI, more of sort of the final frontier before it goes to the house or to your DAW or even to your amp. I do like, if I take the reverb off, I do like this. You hear how you get the sort of hiss, the tape noise kind of blooms into the sound. But when you mute the instrument, when there's no signal going to it, that is kind of a gated effect. Which to me is that element of it's a master something or the other. It's an end of signal chain before it goes to tape or before it goes to the house. Because if there's constant sound going, then that is going to be, you're going to have that sort of lo-fi hiss that you can get by really cranking the treble. I don't think for bass I would necessarily take all the bass out of it on the EQ. As a bass player, I think, I'm not sure there's so much value in that just for regular playing. But having said that, you could put so many ideas together if you're into ambient music or looping and creating sort of glitchy sounds. I think it's nice to have something at the end of the chain where you can manipulate the sound and find your sweet spot for a specific, sort of piece of sound design, if you like. And you can hear that tape hiss blooming there. If I put that little ambient thing into the looper, now let's A-B that. Missed it. Again, it's a great feel thing. In terms of how it affects the way I play, how it sort of shapes the direction in which I'm going to go. And I think probably a great tool in this location for the studio or for live to be able to dial in specific things as you go, as you're building layers to a song, as you move from song to song, and you want to have different presets, so to speak, and slightly different angles, slightly different takes, slightly different flavors on the natural sound of the instrument. Okay, so we're down on the pedal board now. The 424 is in the middle of the chain. It's after my octave effects. The ephemeron, the mantic, the MXR vintage bass octave. It's in the spot I normally reserve for fuzz pedals, creating this kind of weird loop. Because before I get all like blown out Foo Fighters kind of sound, I have it kind of fuzzed out now, but more maybe a synth or sort of 808 sub sound. So let's break down what's happening there before we get too carried away. I've got my Mantic Hulk, which is a subharmonic. That's that sound. And I've got the 424 now dialed in pretty fuzzy and gained out. And those two together, kind of vibey. So we're definitely getting into, I think, more useful use cases for us bass players when you deal with maybe electronic music with big subby, modern, fat synth bass sounds. That's the 424 doing a lot of that. That's modulating the sine wave and giving us that big, fat, massive keyboard bass sound. And when you play it over this kind of weird little glitchy loop in the background, rolled out some of the treble there. It's a little less aggressive that way. And added a little more trim just to change the characteristic. So that's one fat sounding application for it. I could also put it with a more traditional octave pedal. Kind of. That's the MXR vintage bass octave. It's got a little bit more point to it, a little bit more poke in the note. It's less of a subharmonic and more of a true octave pedal, and that's, you know, being blasted through the 424. We haven't put any of this through the big stereo reverb yet. That really opens it up. And if we go back to the subharmonic and get kind of more extreme with the 424, blast it a little more, you can really getting into some huge cinematic sounds. And before this video is 9 hours long, let's just crank in more natural sound of the bass, but fuzzed up. It's kind of like in sort of gated fuzz territory. Natural sound of the bass. Pretty sweet and clean, and then I keep coming back to this word bloom, and I get that feeling with the fuzz element of the 424. It feels really nice. The note feels like it's developing a little bit. Could that be due to the tape emulation? Not necessarily tape emulation, but just the gain structure of the channel strip of the 424. I don't know. I'm not the tech nerd. Leave your questions and comments below. I'll link to JHS, of course, if you want to go check this out. And like I said at the beginning of the video, let's kind of reveal what it may replace on my current pedal board. I actually have to build a new pedal board pretty soon for some upcoming shows, something that needs to be a little more compact than my most recent sort of mega build. And for the longest time, for two or more years now, I've been using the JHS color box as my preamp, as the very first thing that my bass hits in the signal chain, which gives me that clean DI out front. I also have a stereo DI on the end of the signal chain, which is what you've been listening to most recently in the video with the big reverbs and stuff. So I want those two options. I want to have, especially when recording, I want to have that clean mono DI right up front before anything is affected, plus my affected and weird and ambient stereo DI in the back. So I'm normally taking 3 channels when I record bass. Now what I think the 424 might do, being that it has that XLR out with a ground lift, a balanced DI, is give me all of that in a unit that is maybe 2/3 of the size, maybe even half the size, and of course at a much lower price point as well. So if the color box is sort of out of your range, but you still want some options, maybe not all those like crazy EQ options that are on the color box, but still, as you've heard, I think a few useful things, especially with the treble. I think treble and high end is totally underrated with bass players, and pushing a little bit more of the treble can help, you know, other pedals down the line in the signal chain and give you clarity and cut. And you heard with the fuzz, it gets a point on it as well. So although it's not as complex as the color box, I think it is probably a great alternative and something I'm considering literally putting on the pedal board for gigs next week to see how that goes. Again, clean balanced DI out of the side of it, and all kind of like nice preamp sounding options coming from this place of nostalgia for me, the Tascam 424. I'd like to know your thoughts. Have you got your hands on one of these yet? Have you played it? What are your thoughts in general on DIs and preamps for the bass and where they sit in the signal chain? And stay tuned, because if this does make it on the board, I will make a complete board build video later this week, and of course give you some sound samples, some live in the field actual use case samples of what this does for my sound out on the gig. That's it. Appreciate you spending some of your crazy precious time with me nerding out about pedals, preamps, DIs, gain, staging. Thanks to JHS for sending it over. Always nice to try something new as soon as it comes out, even a little bit before, and to be able to share it with all of you. That's it. See you guys on the next one.